Hi, everybody. First and foremost, I want to say thanks to Jen and James for giving us a chance. Sorry. For recognizing us and giving us an opportunity and continuing to present opportunities where we can be supported, because we really, really appreciate it. My name is Nicole Jackson. I am the founder of an organization called Adventures with Autism, and we are located in Atlanta. We serve basically anybody that can get to us and participate in our events, but we're located in Northeast Atlanta. What we do is we serve children with autism and their parents or caregivers. And in 2023, we will be placing autism service dogs in the homes of these children. BIPOC families, marginalized families, disenfranchised, low income. My son is 5, and he was diagnosed with autism when he was 21 months. And I told the doctors that I knew something was wrong, and they tell you that it's fine. They're fine. They're young. They'll outgrow it. They're just developmentally delayed. And I kept going back, and it probably took me 2 or 3 times before they listened to me, and I got a referral. Got the referrals for the evaluation. Then there's a delay because you wait on that. And once they do that, they present the information back to a specialist, and they tell you that your child's autistic. And then you get a referral for treatment, but there's a delay on that. So when it's all said and done, it's probably about 6 months for us, which felt like a lifetime, before he started treatment. But he was only 2 years old at the time, and he was in what we call, their brains are like sponges, basically, before it's early intervention, before they turn 5 years old. So we made it. And he made great progress. He went from being nonverbal to being verbal. He progressed intellectually, he progressed socially, emotionally. And what I found out is that in the state of Georgia, 1 in 46 Black children are autistic. And it takes an average of 3 years longer for them to be diagnosed. They make 3 times as many doctor's visits. They get told that their children are behavioral problems or it's a disciplinary problem. And so by the time it's all said and done, these kids are past 5 when they get diagnosed. They missed the mark, even though their parents went to the doctor when they were 23 months, and they were just as concerned as everybody else. And by the time they're 8 years old, they are the highest demographic of children with autism in Georgia. And they're the ones that are the farthest behind. You can go next slide. So a couple of years ago, a friend of mine and I, when our kids went to public school, they have in the better, I call it better areas, where our kids get more attention, they have autism programs in school. It starts in pre-K. And the kids make great progress there. And when it came time for summer, that's when the kids backslide, and we don't want that to happen. So we started looking for summer programs, and there was nothing that encompassed therapy and academics and would prevent our children from eloping, which a lot of autistic children do, which means they just run off, and they can get hurt, they can die. They have no perception of danger. And there was no programs available, so I was just like, I told my friend, I'll do it. I'll just take the kids this summer, and I'll do it, and I'll keep them up to pace. And she said, well, don't you think that's selfish? And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, that we can do it for our kids. What about all the other kids in the class? And she had a nonprofit. And so underneath her nonprofit, we did a Mommy and Me summer camp. And we kept the kids up to pace, and we stimulated them. We did their occupational therapy. We had a speech therapist come in, and it was really awesome. And when it was all done, she said, you should have your own nonprofit. And I said, well, my passion is for animals, because I've been in rescue for 13 years. And I said, but obviously now I'm impassioned for autistic children and their families. And she said, we'll find a way to combine the two. And so that's what I've done, and that's what Adventures with Autism is. When I talk about meltdowns, if anybody knows what a meltdown is, we hear it used as like a catchphrase, oh, Susan's having a meltdown in accounting. Well, that's a tantrum. That's not a meltdown. A meltdown is pretty serious. It is when you're so overwhelmed, overstimulated, that your brain basically just shuts down. and it manifests verbally as yelling or violently or both. And the person who's having the meltdown, they can't control it. There's absolutely no control for it whatsoever. But it's also really common regardless of the age of the person. So you may see somebody in a video that looks like an adult having a situation, and they're just an awful person. They call them Karens. Sometimes it's a meltdown, and to the untrained eye, you can't see that, but when you can, it's super duper sad. Can we go to the next slide, please? Inside of our community, we have a lot of challenges. One being that, our kids are, the behavioral challenges that they have manifests long before they get their diagnosis, and the parents have to contend with that at home. We call it white knuckling it. The anxiety that parents deal with when we have a child that has meltdowns or that elopes. When we go out in public, everything has to be planned to the T. We got to try to account for, these situations. I was telling you that I can't even tell you how many times we leave full buggies of groceries in the grocery store. It took us twice as long to get them in that buggy, and our kid has a meltdown, and we got to get him out of there. Plus, people are judging us, and they're saying things like, your child needs to be disciplined or whatever, and we end up in the car crying, both of us, and not wanting to go back. And there's things that, we want to do just like everybody else. We want to have the same experiences. I want to go to the zoo. I want to take my baby to the birthday parties. I want to go to the park. But the fear of what's going to happen and the backlash of that taking hours to recover from just isn't worth it. Because we don't have even though our kids go to therapy, we're not being educated. And so we don't have what's called intervention techniques to help our babies recover so that we can go back and finish these activities. But there is something that can help, and it can help in public, and it can help at home, and it's a service dog. But service dogs cost $25,000 to $50,000 to acquire if you're going to purchase one. And if you were to Google autism service dogs in children, you're going to find 1 million pictures, and none of those babies are going to be brown, because the only way they're going to get one is through a grant. And it's not very common. It doesn't happen. Our shelters, everybody knows that lives in Georgia, our shelters and rescues are full. They are not doing intake right now. And that breaks my heart in a whole other way. Our board is made up of parents. We have the speech therapist from Gwinnett County, Georgia, is on our board. Myself, I've been in rescue. I have somebody else that's been in rescue. We have a passion for these animals and for the kids. And so what we want to do, you can go ahead and do next slide. What we want to do is pull from rescues that are pulling from shelters. Am I still on? Okay. That are pulling from shelters and have these animals trained as service dogs. And we have found a group of the most qualified and amazing and compassionate trainers that can do this for a fraction of the cost. And we can get these pups in the houses. You may be wondering, what can a service dog for autism do that's different? Well, they anchor, they brace. They hold so that the child stops from trying to elope. Now mom doesn't have to put him in a wheelchair or a stroller to keep him safe. She can walk through the grocery store. She can also do that when she's at home. She can leave the room and know that he's not going to get out. He's not going to run down the street and end up on the news. So that relieves anxiety. Going into places, the child has tactile stimulation. They're able to do deep pressure on a baby, and that's really relaxing for them. And they can also alert the parents for help. They can alert when the child gets away, and they can help recover them. Next slide, please. So maybe you're wondering, what kind of dogs can be service dogs? Any kind of dog can be a service dog. It could be a little teeny tiny dog, but that doesn't serve the purpose for an autism therapy dog or service dog. We need a dog that can weigh, that can do deep pressure, that can anchor a child and keep them safe. So while we wouldn't discriminate as far as what they can do or which dogs we were going to use, I wanted to point out that I found out that guess which breeds are in the top 11. and Staffordshire Terriers. So yeah, both of them temp tested. They both temp tested over the 90 percentile. Staffordshire Terriers are number 6 for service dogs, and American Pit Bull Terriers are number 11. So we would like to be able to utilize them, and they're strong. They can do the deep pressure, they can brace, and we also all know that they're really amazing. Can we do next slide, please? Successes. So we've had successful adventures where we go out and, in these real life situations, we take a behavioral specialist with us. And when mom encounters an issue, baby has a meltdown. I call them all babies, even though they're not babies. Baby has a meltdown. The behavioral specialist is going to observe what's going on, see what kind of technique mom is trying to do to recover. And if it's ineffective, she'll kind of step in and say, hey, mom, let's try this, so that we can have the baby recover, so that they leave this interaction, this event, the Children's Museum, the aquarium, which, by the way, is a certified autism center in Atlanta, the Georgia Aquarium. We might go to the park. We might go to Costco. Things that are really difficult and scary that we don't want to do on our own, that we've kind of scratched off our list, or where we tackle. And so that way mom and the little one leave, on a good note and empowered to go out and do this again. But we also follow up with them, and the behavioral specialist will write down, because we're not really logging it. Hey, I saw this happen, and this is what you tried. It wasn't that effective. This is what we did, and it worked. And now mama's got that in her back pocket, in her toolbox for next time, and she can go out and do that. We have families that are already on the wait list to have service dogs. They're just waiting. We have people that are lined up and waiting for our next event to be announced, which is really cool. We are probably going to be adding, I already know we have to, another behavioral specialist. And that is because we need more hands on deck with elopers. So we can only have one eloper if we have one behavioral specialist with that group, because they need a little bit of extra care. Can we do the next slide, please? Thank you so much. We had, I'm going to call it a success and the success and a challenge was that in one of our events we had 2 elopers. It didn't go well. They went. So that's really important that we have funds to support being able to have another one on staff. We need donations, we need volunteers. We need volunteers that are skilled with interacting with special needs children, specifically with autistic children, because it's not the same as just interacting with a child. And the cost of hosting events, obviously, because it takes money. I just want to thank everybody so much, and thank you for the opportunity.